Welcome to our very first true Spaulding Feature in the lifestyle interview. We've actually done other videos in the past with really amazing performances here in Central Ontario from different artists, different musicians. And this is our first lifestyle communication because I have a really talented, resilient, and very amazing young lady here in the studio, Christene Bell. Her story is phenomenal. So it's probably going to be cut up into 4 different, if not 5 segments, and you got to stay for all 5. So tell us a little bit about you. You are a nurse.
I am a nurse, so I've been a nurse for about 7 years.
Okay.
I've been in healthcare for 20. So I started fresh out of high school into healthcare as a PSW, and then I did some time in social services as an autism liaison and IBI therapist. Then came back to healthcare and then went back to school for nursing, and then SWAN, and now I'm in school again getting my degree.
What is it you like about nursing?
Oh my gosh, I love being involved in people's care. I love that you're learning something constantly. Every single person that you see when you're pulling together, not just the diagnosis that they've received, but their family, their environment, all of these things. And you can paint this beautiful little puzzle of a picture and then you have to solve it.
Okay. And I just learned from you there's different kinds of nursing. There's community nursing and what was the other nursing?
So there's facility nursing,
Okay.
and there's also public sector. There's quite a few different areas actually nurses.
And what kind of nursing were you in?
Community.
Okay. And I understand your journey has brought you through highs and lows and fairly big lows. Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when I first started working in community, it was a PSW. And then when I went on to nursing, one of the things I love about it is because I'm a single mother, it allows me the flexibility to full-time parent my children, as well as full-time support them by working, and really being able to go into people's homes and becoming members of their families and things like that. So pretty much right away I started working on specialties. So I have a lot of focus, palliative peds, nephrology, wound ostomy, continence, things like that. Yeah. So it started with that, and then the challenge with community nursing is we're alone all the time. So people don't really understand what a community nurse does. They think a lot of the times when you tell somebody, hey, I'm a community nurse, they think you're changing, Band-Aids and giving baths all day, but that's not the case at all. And the environment that we're working in is a big challenge as well because we're alone. So our practice is entirely autonomous. We do have supervisors between specified hours if they're available to answer their phone. But otherwise, you're on your own going into people's homes. That's where our patients are. Also, sometimes retirement homes, hotels, if we're serving transient populations, safe houses, boarding houses, things like that. And you're completely alone. You don't know what you're walking into. You don't know what the patient's going to be like. You don't know what the family's going to be like, if they have any at all. You don't know if there's going to be other people on site. Even the neighbors can attribute to risk in this environment, so it's hard.
And have you had encounters now as a nurse in these private environments trying to do your job?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've had a lot of great positive experiences, but the challenge is, again, because we're behind closed doors and a lot of the population that we're dealing with, I have suffered quite a few instances of sexual assault. I've been exposed to a lot of sexual violence and physical violence. And on top of that, there's a psychological trauma as well of, the patient population that we serve, because I also do palliative. So, you're supporting patients through their death process as well as their families in their home. So, a lot of that impacts your trauma response as well.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. Mm-hmm. So, are you still nursing now?
Unfortunately, I am still on a leave. So in June, was my last attack that I had serving transient population, unfortunately, in a safe treatment site. So I was attacked again by a few people who were not patients of mine. They were actually just on site. And as a result of that, as well as the organization that I was working for reprimanding me for requesting escort and safe work for the next nurse to go in, I suffered a nervous breakdown. The next day it was pretty bad. I was stuck in my car. I couldn't get out. And it took me about 10 days after that to start to come together. I couldn't even touch my front door, let alone get out of my home. So I'm still struggling with that.
Oh, how long has that been now?
So that was June. So September, October, November, December, January, February, March, 10 months.
Wow.
10 months. Yeah.
That's a long journey.
Yeah, it's a challenge because you don't know what's going to trigger you. And because it's so many different episodes that kind of compounded and shape shifted, and then, you know, the last one that happened was what I guess broke in my brain. It's like a smell will set you off, and, you know, a sound, a song, a word. And, you know, I'm through therapy, and WSIB has been supporting me phenomenally. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but they've been really supportive in providing therapy for my workplace PTSD. And so just as you start to learn your coping strategies and feel like you're going to be okay, that one thing happens. And for me, a lot of it has been, you know, continued harassment, unfortunately, by my previous employer. Every time I start to move on, they creep back in, and it triggers everything again. And then I'm stuck. 2 weeks ago, unfortunately, I found myself in crisis. I couldn't even leave my bedroom. It was so bad. And I had to call the crisis line for help because I couldn't get out to take myself anywhere to get help. And so I'm trying to come back from that and parent my kids alone while I'm dealing with that. And it's hard.
You have how many kids?
I have 3.
Okay.
Yep, I have 3 special needs kids.
You have your hands full.
Yep.
You would think of all things a healthcare provider would be more facilitative of your journey and what you've been going through. Mm-hmm. But it seems to be the other way.
Yeah, and that was one of the contributing factors to what led to my trauma, unfortunately, was I did reach out for support, and you expect the organization and the people who are supposed to be supporting you in your autonomous high-risk job to contribute to you feeling safe and secure, and have somebody to rely on. And in addition to them not supporting me to feel safe and secure and reprimanding me for wanting to feel safe and secure, then they weren't contacting me at all while I was reaching out. So it puts you in this position where, you know, you're in an organization that you previously loved, in an industry that you love, and you're feeling alone, and you feel like you have nobody. And you know, you're begging and you're begging and you're begging, and nobody's there, and you're trying to pick yourself back up so you can put yourself back there, you know, for the sake of your patients and a job that you love. And
so if you had a word to share with your community or the world at large, so other people are going through the same kind of things you've been through or going through what you're going through now, what would that be?
Oof. PTSD is a struggle, and you really have to make sure that you don't take your good days for granted, but you also have to feel your bad days. One of the hardest parts in my journey in the beginning was trying to force myself to not feel the bad days I was having, to try to hide the panic so I could get back out there, because I felt like I was weak if I wasn't going to work. I was weak if I wasn't standing up for my children. I was weak if I needed to crumble on the floor and cry because my brain was tricking me into fearing for my life. And that's not the fact, because the only way that you can work through it and get better is embracing those feelings that you're having and reaching out to people for support, which is another thing people like me are good at. So,
do you see an end to this? What is your goal? What is your end to this?
I want to be okay. That's my end goal. I want to be okay. I want to have a day where I don't wake up in a panic attack. I want to have a day where I can find an organization that's going to appreciate and value me enough to do the job that I love, but also feel safe doing it, because nurses, there's this expectation that there's things we experience in our field, and we don't have to. We should be able to be safe and supported doing something that we love and come home okay to our children. So that's what I want.
Are there things we can do to help you?
I don't know. That's a tough question. I think, you know, just the awareness of, especially in community nursing, having people understand that, you know, there's a lot more out there than we know, and facilitating connections. That's one of the other things that I've learned through this, is there are connections and there are support, but nobody tells you. Nobody tells you. So if anything were to come out of my experience and what I have, it would be, you really have to fight for yourself, and you have to take advantage of those opportunities. And the world needs to look at you not as a weak person, but as somebody who needs help. Don't stand back and say, you're gonna get through this on your own. Help me get through this. Help us get through this, because we don't know why our brain is doing what it's doing.
I remember you telling me at one time that a lot of people tell you that you're strong or you're resilient. Mm-hmm. and that is a blessing and a difficulty for you at the same time. Can you describe why and how that is?
Yeah, so I've been through a lot of trauma in my life, a lot of unfortunate situations, and for the most part, I am on my own. I support myself. I support my children, and I also save the world. So when my phone rings, it's usually to help somebody else. It's to save somebody else. But the phone, isn't answered in the opposite respect. So because I've had these challenges presented to me, it's been a lot of survival. So every time something falls apart, because I know my children need me, I have no choice but to figure out what is this problem, what is the solution, how am I going to get there, and I work through it and I get there, and you start to feel great, and then you're knocked down again by the next thing and the next thing, divorce, abuse, this situation with my work. There's been quite a few things, and I keep bringing myself back up. But it's not, people think it's because I want to, because I'm driven, because I'm excited to, what's the next goal, what's the next plan, what's the next challenge. I have no choice. It's survival. And I thank God every day for the strength to be resilient and to be able to, bring myself to a point to build myself back up. But it's exhausting. And when other people look at you from the outside and they just see every time you get back up, less people want to help you because they think you can manage on your own. They think you want to manage on your own, but you don't. But you also don't want to be a burden to other people. And so here you are, this strong, resilient, taking care of everything and always coming out on top, regardless of how far down you fall. Every single time you get up, it's harder and it's harder and it's harder, and your circle gets smaller. And so, for other people to be looking at people struggling and commenting on how strong they are, I promise you, not one of them is saying thank you. Not one of us are. We're tired. We're tired.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to cry.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We have more to share. This is just part of it. So let's go on to another segment after a break, because these segments need to be short for the short attention spans of everyone else. So I'd like to get into some of the things that you've dealt with now in the last 3 years regarding the jab and trauma and drama that you wouldn't believe, especially being the industry that she's in. So let's reconvene in a few moments.